Alright, what's up? I'm wearing Jake the dog pants. Talk about some movies, because that's what we do here, I guess. We're going to run through 3 movies I've seen vaguely recently, not as recent. I just saw the movie Irreversible like 2 nights ago, and that's still haunting my memory. First choice is we're going to talk about Drive, and then we're going to talk about the movie Climax, which I don't own on Blu-ray yet, but through the magic of technology, it'll look like I'm... Superimpose the Climax Blu-ray right here, Trent. There, good job. And then the other film we're going to talk about is Under the Skin. Up into the first film, which is 2011's Drive, starring Ryan Gosling. See, these are the parts I cut out where I'm thinking about what I want to say next, because I don't have a script. Drive is a movie from 2011 starring Ryan Gosling and Carey Mulligan, and is a movie about a stunt car driver played by Ryan Gosling. His name is just Driver. He doesn't have a name in the film. It's a story about a stunt car driver. It also deals with him meeting a new person in his apartment complex named Irene, played by Carey Mulligan, and the relationship he forms with her and her son and her husband, who recently got out of prison. Due to him becoming friends with them, he ends up getting in trouble with the mob and tries to fix everything and take matters into his own hands, but because of that, everybody has to suffer. He suffers for it, she suffers for it, her husband suffers for it, the father figure in his life, played by Bryan Cranston, suffers for it. I'm a big fan of the cinematography in this movie. It could have been shot like any other car movie. you know the ones, but I think it goes a step beyond just being your regular Fast and the Furious car movie. It's a lot more slow. It takes its time. It definitely has faith in the audience that it definitely has faith in its audience for being smarter than average people, because I know a lot of people don't like how slow it is and they kind of just hate it, because I know when it was in theaters, that's kind of what made it suffer, because it was marketed as a Fast and Furious movie, and this is not at all. It's very slow, very artistic, and I like it a lot. I think the soundtrack is fantastic. Like, Ryan Gosling does an amazing job. He says like 36 lines throughout the whole movie, and that's perfect. The violence is great. The emotional pull is fantastic too, because just of how slow the movie is, you really have time to get to know these characters and get to know where they're coming from and their story, and just to see what ends up happening to all of them is really interesting. And I like how the ending, spoiler, I like how the ending leaves it up to interpretation as to whether or not he survived or not. I know the director has said he likes to imagine that he survived, and that's fully up to interpretation. My interpretation is, again, spoiler territory, but my interpretation is he was stabbed and he bled out in the car, and him driving away is him driving off to the afterlife, whatever that may be. That's my interpretation, but again, it's great when a director leaves things up to interpretation like that. I think that's all my points for this movie. I really enjoy it. All in all, I give it a 4.5 out of 5. My review is on Letterboxd. It probably doesn't make any goddamn sense because I probably wrote it at 4 a.m. like I usually do, but link is in the description for my Letterboxd if you want to go see that. I'll also have a link to my Twitter where I tweet random garbage. And be sure to give this video a like and stuff. Alright. Next movie is, superimpose it over my hand, is Climax. I don't own it on Blu-ray. That's why I'm showing you the back to Under the Skin. I mean Climax. Holy shit. We're going to talk about Climax. Climax is a 2018 film by Gaspar Noé. It is a French movie. It is mostly about dance. For like the first 40, 45, 50 minutes of this hour-and-a-half long movie, it is just dance, like this. And I don't like dance movies, usually, but I was really entertained with all the dancing that was happening. because I thought it was interesting enough to hold its own. This one really held my interest just because of how different all the styles were, because you have people who are from Berlin and France and Russia. You get to see dance styles from all over different parts of the country, or different parts of the world and whatnot, and it's really interesting to see. And then the last 40 minutes of the movie is an absolute nightmare. And after the rehearsal is over, everybody's just having like a party or whatever. They're drinking sangria, eating some snacks. Little do they know, the sangria was laced with LSD, and nobody knew. So people start acting weird, and they're trying to figure it out, and it's a desperate struggle to try to figure out what's happening to them. And once it is figured out, they start throwing blame around, and panic ensues. They throw a guy out because he didn't have any, so they figured he laced it. There's a woman who didn't drink anything because she just found out she was pregnant, and they thought she laced it. So wacky hijinks ensue there. It's a different type of story too with this, because like I've seen stuff like this done where it's like, oh no, they laced my thing with whatever and I didn't know. And you usually get to see that from their perspective of like, oh, the walls are shifting and whatever. But in this movie, you are a fly on the wall. You are just watching these people suffer. And it's like, it's the best anti-drug PSA I've ever seen. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. I'm gonna get into some spoiler territory, so I don't know the time code yet, but if you want to, skip ahead, I guess, since this film is fairly new. Drive, there wasn't too much to spoil, and it's older, so I didn't feel too bad. But this one I will, because this is definitely a must-see. If you can handle it. It's genuinely terrifying. So, I'll try to put a code up. If I don't, yell at me in the comments. So, 3, 2, 1, spoilers. A child dies. There's a kid in the movie that is the dance teacher's child, and he accidentally drinks some of the sangria. In a panic, she locks him in like a janitor's closet, and in there is a generator, and the whole movie, you're hearing him screaming in the background. It doesn't matter where you are in the movie, what's happening, you are hearing him scream constantly, because he's seeing things, cockroaches, whatever. It's not really there, but it's what he's seeing. You never are in the janitor's room with him, because you're seeing the movie from a perspective of somebody who has not taken it, but is just there, walking around with these people. And it's terrifying. So you see what they see. You never see the inside of the janitor's closet until the end, and at one point, the lights go off, you hear this zap, and you know what happened, because there's a generator in that room that was keeping the power on. He obviously dove into it or something, and the scene with the pregnant woman that I said earlier, they don't believe that she's pregnant, so to prove it, she has to kill her baby. It's just as dark and disturbing as it sounds. It's terrifying. There's a guy, there's a guy who's like a body, I don't know what it's called, I'm not educated on this shit, but it's like he can manipulate his body into certain ways, and fuck. There's a guy in the film who, I don't know what it's called, but he like dislocates parts of his body to make his body do weird shapes, like he can bend himself in all sorts of directions, and during the trip out scene, which you're seeing the beginning of here, it gets so much worse. But during like the scene where everybody's tripping out, you audibly hear him breaking his own bones to just do what he's doing. And by the end of it, when everything's over and you're seeing the aftermath of everything, he's laying there with his head twisted the other way because he killed himself by accident. He had no idea what he was doing. It's an absolutely terrifying movie and messes with all of your senses. Just the very beginning, it opens up with the credits, and the end of the movie. It starts with the end, and then after that, goes to the beginning. It's not like an irreversible kind of situation where it starts at the end and then just keeps going backwards. It starts, which is also the same director. It starts at the end and then goes to the beginning. It's strange. I think the directing was phenomenal, because most of it, I don't know, as you're seeing, is one shot, or at least feels like it. I never noticed the cuts if there were cuts, and I was looking for them. It is in French, so you will have to read subtitles, but honestly, it's worth it for an experience like this. It's so good. And I firmly put this one at number 2 on my list of movies I would not show my mom, and I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5. Same as Drive. This movie is phenomenal and terrifying. It's the best anti-drug PSA I've ever seen. So the third and final film we're going to talk about today is Under the Skin, released in 2014, I think. Yes, 2014. I'm a Dippy Down, starring Scarlett Johansson as an alien of sorts. I want to start off right off the bat and say this movie is unlike anything I've ever seen. I adore it, and it takes a lot of plot elements from like sci-fi movies you've probably seen. I think Species is one of them. Like the movies where an alien tries to blend in but then starts to like human civilization. Like that, it's a tired plot, I know, but the way it's done in this movie I've never seen, and I really enjoyed it because of that. It's amazing. I adore this movie so much. It's just one of the best, hands down, films I've ever seen. I have to watch more movies from 2014, but this is definitely like number 1 for me so far. Well, I guess I should get into the plot, huh? So it's about Scarlett Johansson, who is an alien, like I said. She is coming down to Earth, and it's never explained exactly what she's doing. And it doesn't need to be, which I think that makes it more scary, because it's just never, you don't know what she's doing at all, at any time. Like, it's never said. There's barely any dialogue in this movie. Like, if you thought Ryan Gosling in Drive barely said anything, there's barely any dialogue, period, in this movie. Like, it's very slow, it's very meticulous, it takes its time, it has a lot of faith in its audience, like, more so than what I said for Drive. Like, it has a lot of faith in its audience to not get bored and to stay interested. And I know that's a detriment for some people, because it's a lot of people don't like slow movies. I really like them. And I know a lot of people didn't like this movie because it is very slow until about the third act is when it starts to pick up. But by the time the third act rolls around, you're already like an hour and a half into it. So when it picks up, it wants you to be very patient with it, because by the time it picks up, it's almost over. So anyway, she is an alien. She came down to Earth, and her whole thing is she's trying to seduce men to take them to her ship, which is a black void. There's a lot of nudity, a lot of Scarlett Johansson nudity, which, I mean, if you're into, sure. I was so fucking confused, I had no idea. So that's there. I just figure that's a good warning, because I know some people don't like nudity, and there's a lot of penis. It doesn't shy away from showing you everything. It's a very, very smart, very artistic, very slow film, and I really appreciate that about it. There's one scene in particular, which I guess I can go into spoiler territory now. So I guess skip to this time code. Here, more work on myself. We'll see how that goes. And if I don't put the time codes, I'll definitely put them in the comments. You know what? Fuck it. Go to the comments for the spoiler time code, because if I don't do it here, I'm going to have faith in myself that I put them in the comments. There's one scene in particular where 3, 2, 1, spoilers. You get to see what happens to the men she seduces when they're floating in the nothingness. Because they sink into this black void and they're floating in nothing. And I have no idea how this effect was done. I don't even want to look up how the effect was done, because the fact that I don't know makes it even better. You just see everything inside of them just leave, and their skin just turns into tissue paper, and they just fold in on themselves. And then you see just this conveyor belt of meat going somewhere, and it's never shown where it goes. And I love that about it. I think it's one of the most interesting films ever put. I love it so much. Spoilers end. The whole commentary I get from it, because there are a lot of unanswered questions and people don't really know what the point was. So what I get from it is, I believe it's a critique on like the beauty industry, because it starts with her just watching people and like watching them buy makeup and all this other stuff, and she believes that she has to put this on to look pretty, and every guy she picks up, all they talk about is just how pretty she is. Oh yeah, she's driving around in a van picking up dudes. That's how she's seducing them in Dublin, or I don't think it's Dublin. I don't know. It's somewhere in Ireland, because you can't understand a goddamn word these people are saying.
Do you not think you should be wearing a jacket in the weather like this? The weather's terrible up here. You catch your death of cold if you've not got a jacket or a hat or something on. You've not got the right clothes on at all.
Watch it with subtitles, and I gotta find a new thing to put on.
Hey, what's up? This is impromptu recording Trent. I just wanted to interrupt this review because there was a lot more recorded, about 7 minutes of video and audio recorded, and none of it added anything. It was completely useless. It was just more or less me gushing about the movie for about 7 minutes and talking about nothing, and I didn't think it was worth it. And I know this video is an absolute mess, but that's because I didn't have a script. The next one will be better, I hope. The only point I wanted to make was this movie is entirely up to interpretation with the ending. Whatever it meant, there's a lot of unanswered stuff. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense, and that's on purpose. The main point of this is I wanted to just cut out the garbage where I'm just gushing, and I'm gushing again. It's a good movie. I really like it. Recommend it. Okay, impromptu Trent done. I have a sock on top of this mic to break the plosives. Ow, leg cramp!
I can't express enough how much I love this movie. I think it's definitely one of my favorites. It's my second favorite film of all time. It's beautiful. I love it so much, and I think it deserves all the praise it's gotten throughout the years. And I give it a solid 5 out of 5. It's honestly my favorite. And with that, I think I'll end the video here. So, thank you for watching. This is the first one, so it's very, very loose, very weird. I'll have a formula down eventually. Whee! I'll have a formula down eventually, but right now I was just kind of playing it by ear to see how this would go. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy for whatever reason, whether my editing or just me in general, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe bell thing and leave a like. And send me $20. No. Yeah, that's about it. So, Doom Eternal comes out on the 20th. So if there's not a video that week, I apologize. That's the end of this fucking video.